in the older days, they said the Earth was flat. Then they realized that it's round. What caused them to believe that the Earth is round and not flat?
You know, I'd have to go back and look at the history of it. I do know that at least a fair bit of that discussion is we're looking out and seeing these other bodies out in the heavens where you can see Venus rotate on its axis.
Right.
You can see Mars rotate on its axis. You can see Jupiter rotate on its axis. You can see the sun rotate on its axis. If we fit within that system of things, it's kind of natural for us to think we rotate on an axis.
So you believe it's a conspiracy that we went to the moon?
Oh, good Lord, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
You think that's a conspiracy?
Yeah, that's the tip of the iceberg there, and that is not, it's way bigger than that. What I'm saying is the only reason we have space programs at all is to keep this thing going as long as possible. I mean, they discovered it in 1960, and they said they figured out it was a real risk to civilization as we know it. They were afraid of what might happen. And so they said, okay, 1958, NASA was formed, and they militarized space.
The astronauts who have gone up there and walked around, and we saw them walking around, were they walking on flat Earth or round Earth?
They were walking on a soundstage in an Air Force base somewhere.
Are you serious?
Oh, absolutely.
You believe that?
I don't. I just find it hard that many people are that unethical. You know, I mean, especially when you go back and you look at Neil Armstrong as he's, and the astronauts that are going there, and they're talking about Scripture and seeing God's majesty in creation, to then come back and say, oh, I've got to lie about this. That's inconsistent with Christian character.
I agree. But at the same time, look, they were military. I mean, one of the Apollo astronauts was a lieutenant general. I feel bad for Neil. Neil became a recluse after it was all over. He drank and just did not make any public appearances. I think all the Apollo astronauts, which is why the guys now, you know, they signed the disclosure agreements and they don't have to do anything. I think the Apollo astronauts wanted to be heroes. And like the movie Capricorn 1, they were told at the last minute, okay, we're not doing this. Here's why. You follow the script, you do it, you signed up for it, you signed the disclosure agreement, and that's it.
Just as the United States was the first nation to reach the moon in the 20th century, so too will we be the first nation to return astronauts to the moon in the 21st century.
Why would they want to deceive us? What would be the purpose of that?
Power, control, nothing.
How are they gaining power by deceiving us?
No, retaining power. More, meaning if you've built up a civilization, especially since Copernicus, that is, you build a civilization on science. Look, science has been the trendy religion for 500 years. They have been beating all the other 5 religions over the head with textbooks for that long. And then all of a sudden, you're going to come along and say, oh yeah, by the way, you might be wrong about the biggest thing. Because remember, up until NASA went up, you know, in 1958, I'm sorry, NASA was formed in 1958, but up until the Apollo missions, we didn't get up high enough to actually see what this really looked like. So until you look, what do you really know? And all of a sudden you're going to tell people this isn't it? That undermines the scientific pillars. And then you're going to...
But I mean, to speak to that at least, I mean, you know, I would agree there are some people who will be manipulated that way, but you look throughout Christian history and there are people who are willing to die for what they say. And to find that there are no Christians that work in the space program, and you'll find that the space program was replete with Christians, that there are none of them that are willing to stand up.
You're going to be.
That's hard to. That is just really hard to buy.
I know, and trust me when I say I wish, you know, I wish people had more conviction to be the whistleblowers. But who are you going to go to? Who are you going to go to? You going to go to the media? You're going to go to the New York Times? You're going to go to CNN? You're going to go to Fox?
I guess where I'm going with this is, or what I would, I see that you could have a conspiracy dictated by force, and that there are some people who are going to kowtow to the power.
Sure.
But when you look at what Christianity does and has done throughout history, there have been far more onerous powers with far more detrimental consequences. I'm pretty sure none of the astronauts would have lost their life for speaking out. Or possibly, but even if they would.
High treason.
Even if they would, there are people throughout history that have shown themselves willing to do that because of what Christ requires. So the fact that there are none of those in the space program is just incredulous.
I'm I am not saying that there aren't some of those people. Of course, there's some fantastic Christians out there, of course. But there are layers. Look, they've had 60 years to put this thing in place, as far as, put the safeguards in place. Monitor phone calls, monitor emails, and of course, they've got leverage on everybody. I mean, look, I'm lucky I didn't get married or have kids. So many people. I mean, all you have to do is find your pressure points and then squeeze. Your spouse, your kids, your relatives, your legacy, they can find a way to shut you up. Neil Armstrong was a perfect example. When he finally went on stage with Bill Clinton and said, Will, you've got so much more to do with this cryptic message if you can remove one of truth's protective layers. No one had any idea what he was talking about. And that was in the late 90s, I think, or early 2000s.